Hey everybody, it's Greg Harrelson here with the Level Up podcast. Of course, I've got my partner and co-host Brendan Payne with me, and we are going to talk about the lead conversion. And as you can see in the title, Brendan and I want to have an open discussion, and we never know where this is going to go, but we want to have an open discussion about why agents are not converting at a much higher level. To just kind of set up the tone, I just want to let you know that we have hundreds of thousands of leads in our database just within in our companies alone. And so I've Brendan and I, as well as other staff and coaches within in our companies, we've had a good opportunity to kind of see patterns of real estate agents, patterns that are working and patterns that are not working. So, Brendan, before I get started, let me kind of set the tone here, or before we get started, let me set the tone of kind of where I think we should go with this. So,
Yep.
the patterns of people that are converting leads. Here's their patterns. A lead comes in, they call them fast. And when they get them on the phone, they immediately ask for an appointment. Like, they basically, their intention is to set the appointment. So they get a new lead, they call them and they say, "Hey, Brendan, would you like to look at that this afternoon? Or, would tomorrow be better?" It's just right off the get-go, whether it's a seller lead or a buyer lead, they're calling them, getting them on the phone and asking for that appointment. And they're not falling for any smoke screens. And if they don't get them on the phone, they keep calling them. And eventually, if they call them, and never get them on the phone, or they do and they don't set an appointment, they immediately put them in a long-term nurturing program. But that long-term nurturing program is full of different triggers, meaning somebody may click on this to find out what their property's worth, or click on this to find out about home inspections. There's all kinds of different things people can click on that shows the agent whether or not they're engaging with their content or not. And when they're engaging, the agent calls them again. And they drip, and then they call them every quarter at a minimum, and then they convert. That's what successful pattern looks like. What I see the unsuccessful pattern looks like, which is, by the way, the prominent pattern, is you get a new lead, call them once, get no answer, never call them twice. Then say the leads suck, they find a new resource, and then they repeat the same old thing over and over again and just say, "I've never really had any good luck with leads." So, Brendan, I know I said a lot. I was trying to set it up so we kind of get some context of where my mind is with with this particular subject. I guess first, welcome and thank you for being here with me.
Yeah, for sure.
And what's on your mind?
Yeah, so I think that first part's so critical because one, nothing's going to we're never going to convert anything without an initial conversation. And so the attempts that have to be made to get somebody on the phone and have that initial conversation, I don't think anybody, as somebody learning the business, I don't think anybody comes in and understands like what it really means to be aggressive about trying to get a lead on the phone. Some people come in and they're like the one time you described. And somebody else comes in like, "No, I know it takes more than that. I've heard this. I've read these books and stuff." And so they call them like 5 times, maybe twice a day for 2 days. And then we talk with them and it absolutely blows their mind on what you actually have to do. What's it mean to really go after and make that first attempt? And so I think that's the key is understanding that you have to get them on the phone the first time and not judging like, well, they didn't answer, so they're not a lead, and I'm just going to move on from there.
Yeah, you know where my mind is going. I'm a visual, and these pictures are just like appearing in my mind, and when you say that, I'm thinking, we don't act with urgency to actually get them on the phone. We may act with urgency to show them property or get to an appointment or get them to write a contract, negotiating contracts. We maybe even act with urgency on follow-up. But I feel like urgency is lacking from the minute that we capture something to the time that we actually get them that make the first contact. And what I think the picture that was in my mind was when you think about football, the other team kicks off and we receive, and then we run it and we get it. We're on the 30-yard line, right? Well, we've got the ball. That's kind of like us. We've captured the ball. We've captured a lead. But now what we got to do is we got to run a series of plays. And to me, those series of plays is the number of attempts that you're making to get that person on the phone. We captured a lead. Now we got to do everything we can to get them on the phone, because when we get them on the phone, it's almost like now we've already marched all the way up the field and now we're in the red zone.
Mm-hmm.
It's like we're so close to scoring just at the point that we get them on the phone. Because if we get them on the phone, we're probably going to set an appointment. So we're really close to scoring. But when we first get the contact, we're so far away from scoring. And we need to be much more aggressive just to get them on the phone, and not call them, leave one voicemail, wait for them to call back. They don't call us back. So then we never call them back, which is really, really common in our industry.
Yeah, I think it goes hand in hand too with, a lot of times if somebody's newer, or maybe they don't work a lot of outbound leads, maybe everything is referral based and stuff like that, and then they start working leads that you actually have to fight for. A lot of times the perception is, well, I've got this lead, I've got this contact, they raise their hand, they're interested in buying. And in their mind, they think, well, this is a buyer, like they're just going to buy. And as soon as I talk to them, they're going to buy. Now, it doesn't make sense. If that was the case, how hard would you try to get a hold of that person? Like, if you knew every deal that you were going to do was a one contact deal, you would like fall over backwards to try to get a hold of them the first time. But I think instead, that lack of urgency is just like, well, when I get a hold of them, then they're missing the point that they have thousands of options in most markets. They're probably getting calls from 5, 10, a dozen other people. So the urgency to actually get in touch with them quickly is all about not only making contact, but it's trying to solidify your place in line of maybe being the person to maybe help them when they maybe do something. And so I think it's having an understanding of like, how does that lead cycle work? How does the normal buyer buy? How unlikely it is that the first call that you make, you're going to get them, or the first conversation you're going to get is going to be about writing an offer. It's like really understanding this is going to be a process. And the sooner I can start the process at step one, then the sooner the other steps are going to come into play. And then we can figure out, do I end up doing a deal, or is this long-term nurture, or is this somebody that never buys?
Yeah. Yeah. It's a good point. I mean, again, when somebody reaches out, let's just say they sign up on our website, we capture the lead. I think for some reason, because that lead reached out to us, I think agents get the sense of, we got time. Okay, they reached out to us. We got time. I'll go ahead and do this thing, and then I'll go to this appointment and I'll do this, and I'll get back to them later, as if these people are going to wait for them. Mm-hmm. What we need to be thinking as agents, as when we capture that lead and we get that first notification, it's like a race. Always assume there's 3 more agents going after that same lead, and now it's going to be a matter of who gets to it first. If we would actually, again, it goes back to the urgency. If we would recognize that it's a race and the first person to get to that person is going to be the likely winner, if we actually just shifted that one mindset right there, people's conversion would go up probably by 30%.
Yeah, for sure.
Conversion sure would. What about smoke screens? How do you think smoke screens come into play on this?
Well, smoke screens are the next, that's the most common when we talk about smoke screens, objections, and conditions. That's the most common one they're going to come across. And that's just the typical, it's the gut reaction. It's that visceral reaction in a sales conversation that the other side has when they've got, that sales resistance. So in our conversations, and I noticed you were looking on our website and wanted to find out when you want to go take a look at a couple properties. Oh, no, I was just looking. The very typical response that you get from somebody. And like everything else, you've got to know that it exists. I think a lot of people feel like that's an objection. So the first step on getting past that is understanding that's not an objection. That's just a reaction. And then when you've got the reaction and we know we can anticipate that's going to happen, then just moving past that. But that's where, imagine you put all the effort into getting them on the phone, and then you don't get any further than when can I go show you some properties? And they say, no, I was just looking. Well, of course you were just looking. That's why I'm calling you. Like, let's move past that. But if every call stopped there, what would you think about the quality of the leads? And that goes back to, I think a lot of our minds, we believe we're going to make that first phone call and they're going to be like, oh, you know what? It's great that you called. I'm looking for a 4-bedroom, 2-bath. I'm probably going to buy it about 60 days. I'm all pre-qualified. And I just was looking for somebody to help me go show some properties, and then I'll write a contract with you. And we know that's not how it happens. So if that's kind of in our mind, we, don't understand how the process goes, then when we get that smoke screen, we think objection, not a good buyer, just move on past and let me try it again.
Yeah. It's like we're a department store worker, we're in Nordstrom's and we walk up to somebody, say, hey, yes, can I help you? And they say, no, I'm just looking. Like we know if as a salesperson, if we actually believe that, no, they're just looking, they were not there to buy, we'd never make sales.
No.
I mean, it's just, that's for those of you listening, that's what we call a smokescreen. I'll try to relate it a little bit more to conversion too on seller leads. People go out there. I know we do it. We'll generate seller leads through home valuation. What's my property worth type of thing. And then we'll call those leads after they put in their address, their email and their telephone number. We'll call those leads, right? And they'll say, oh, no, it was an accident. No, I was just kind of like playing around on the computer. It was an accident. I'm not thinking about doing anything. Let me just tell you, agents at that point, he's like, oh, okay, no problem. If you ever need anything, let me know, and get off the phone and then say these leads stink. No, that was a smoke screen. That was a smoke screen. And so for everybody that doesn't recognize that as a smoke screen and really thinks it was an accident, how they put their address in by accident, and then they put their email in after they after they accidentally put their address in, then they accidentally added their email to it. And then after accidentally putting their address in an email, they accidentally added their phone number. Like they had 3 accidents in a row. And then when they say, hey, it was just an accident, I'm not selling. That was just an accident. I was just kind of playing around. I wasn't sure what I was doing there.
Just clicked on something.
Just clicked on something. And then agents actually get off the phone. And so that's what I mean. If you recognize that's a smokescreen and then you continue the conversation, build rapport, next thing you know, they're actually in maybe an exploratory phase of potentially selling, maybe not in a listing phase, but maybe they're exploring the possibility. Now, just you not falling for that smokescreen totally changes your conversion ratio.
Yeah, for sure. So now let's assume we get them on the phone, we get past the smokescreen.
Okay.
Most first conversations don't end up with, hey, can you write this contract for me? So there's some sort of follow-up. What do you think is happening related to lack of conversion in agents follow-up? Because that's kind of the next step.
Yeah, I think that I think the most simple thing that comes to my mind is the gap between the last call and the next call is too wide.
Mm-hmm.
So I think there's some conversational improvements that can have also from the agent's perspective, like the dialogue. But I try to figure out like, okay, what's one thing that I can tell an agent that if they corrected or if they chose to, they could correct today? Like if I tell you, hey, your skills need to get better, you need to learn this script, then okay, you're going to have to take another couple weeks and practice the script, role play, and you'll get better in the future. But I'm going to say that they could do this one thing today and it doesn't require any kind of skill. And that is decrease the gap of time between your last call and your next call in the area of follow-up. And when somebody says, call me in a month, then you cut it in half to 2 weeks. If they say, call me in 6 months, you cut it in half to 3 months. That's what I'm talking about by narrowing the gap between the next call from the previous call. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I like that. And along the same lines, I think it's being clear on what are you following up for? I hear all the time when the follow-up call is made, hey, Mr. and Mrs. So-and-so was just touching base with you since the last time we talked. And there's no moving them forward. It's like, I'm calling for an update. And they don't have an update because we're not clear on what's the next step for this person. So in every buyer and every seller, they go through a cycle, and they start with, wanting their in the dreaming phase. And we've talked about this before, then they're in the exploratory phase where they might actually be going out and looking at some stuff online, maybe even looking at some properties. And then they get to the buying phase. But within that, there's all these steps that they're taking. And that's in the follow-up. When we hang up the phone and we don't know ourselves, what is the next step for these people in the sales cycle? Then when we call, then we're just talking about nothing. So I'll give you an example of somebody that maybe it's somebody moving into the area. You're on the phone with them. Yeah, we're going to be down at some point. We want to, look at a condo, something like that. Then they hang up. And if you ask, well, what's the next step? Well, we've got to get them, we've got to get them in and take a look at some properties. Or I'll get a lot of times when I ask the agent, we've got to find something that they like. That's not the next step. So when they think the next step is we've got to find something that we like, we call them and we ask, hey, have you found anything that you like yet? No, not at all. And the next step is actually, we got to get them physically in the market. We got to get them here to show up and go look at some stuff, because they're just going to keep kicking the can down the road, and you're going to keep doing this. And a year and a half later, they haven't found anything they like. And if we were going like, when are you coming in town? Well, I don't have any plans. And then 6 months go by, I still don't have any plans. That might be somebody you can go let them work with the automation and stuff that you're doing, because they're taking too much of your time. In the meantime, you get somebody that says, hey, I'm coming in town in a week, and you didn't know about that because you were asking, did you find anything that you like? The agent behind you was saying, when are you guys going to get in town so we can go look at some stuff in person? We're going to be there in a week. Perfect. Let's get together. Forget what they're looking at online. We'll figure out what they want to look, what they want to see when they get here. The next step, though, was I've got to get them in town. So it's being clear on what is the next step. And when you set your follow-up, that's the conversation you're going to have. If they're out of town, we got to get them in town. If they're in town, we got to get them into a property. They're in town and they looked at property, but their husband hasn't seen it. Next step is we got to get the husband on board. How can we get everybody together? So it's being clear on that and being deliberate in your follow-up to make sure that you each call, you're moving them forward. Don't just have the, how are things going? Have you found anything you liked conversation?
Yeah. Yeah. Just some people are following up just for the sake of making they think it's touching them, making a contact. Yeah. I like that. I was thinking of, I don't know that I've used this term before. Maybe I've heard it from somebody else, but it's like funnel management. You've already got them in the funnel and you're managing that whole process of the funnel, because people move from the top of the funnel to the bottom of the funnel. And what I'm hearing here is funnel management, which is really good. Well, hey, look, I know we could go on this subject for probably another hour, but most people don't want to listen to our podcast anymore like we used to do a long time ago. So why don't we just stop here? And for those of you that are listening, thank you for continuing to follow us on the Level Up podcast. Really appreciate it. A few things that you can do is you ought to go to Facebook. If you're on Facebook, I assume you are, and check out Real Estate Sales Solutions. Just join that group. It's free. There's no cost to it. Just join the group. Brendan and Abe and other people that are good friends of us are constantly posting free content on there. So feel free to check out Real Estate Sales Solutions Facebook page. And then, of course, we have a coaching program called Agent Success Academy. So if you go to realestatesales.solutions.com, check out the Agent Success Academy. We'd love to help you get to the next level. Brendan, thank you again.
You bet. Talk soon.